Hey everybody, Ronarray here, and my league progressing pretty well. After all big buffs, my Rampage and Bear build is stronger than ever. It is 128 move speed while you're using the Rampage, which is very fast. Can destroy everything just by running. Kill tier 3 pinnacle bosses in seconds without a single issue, and all of that while being very tanky and easy to play. Rampage now also not stopping at obstacles anymore, so we can just rampage through everything. The current setup allows Rampage Bear to explode screens while running with a sprint speed while doing Rampage and being significantly faster than other Druid builds because of that, since the sprint speed is pretty high by itself. So in this video, I wanted to showcase the new endgame version of the Rampage Druid. Those changes should help you to improve the DPS, survivability, and make the bear even stronger than before. All previous versions still playable of course and pretty strong by themselves. I will also talk about some budget options to help you out if you don't have enough currency but still want to implement changes and make your build better. During this video, I'm also going to showcase a few unique items. And I'm going to put trade links for those unique items in my guide that you will be able to find in the description and in the pinned comment with all information you will need about the build. So check it out. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the bear, and let's go. So now let's talk about the changes. First off, in the late game version, I believe it's pretty viable to use Lord of the Wild passive, which is going to give us an opportunity to use the Sceptre for additional bonuses. So using the Sceptre together with Wisdom of the Magi Ascendancy is going to improve our DPS significantly, especially if we will be able to get a very good Sceptre. I'm going to cover the Sceptre choice a little later in this video. Using that Sceptre is also going to allow us to use multiple spirit gems with buffs for absolutely free, so we can get in the build herbalism, clarity, cannibalism and vitality without spending any spirit, which is absolutely amazing. And on top of that, we're also going to use a Herald of Ice right now instead of Herald of Ash, together with Armor Explosion to improve our clear even further and to blow up the screens when we're just running through them with the infinite Rampage. We can now also use the Rampage even against pinnacle bosses. So if I'm still keeping the Slam in the build, you can just kill everything with Rampage and use only Rampage for all content. So now let's talk about the changes in more detail, and let's start with the Sceptre. So to use a Sceptre, you will need to go up and take Lord of the Wild's keystone right here. There is a big point to change Turning of the Seasons to Wisdom of the Magi, because we're going to use runes in the Sceptre to get the bonded bonuses for the build, so make sure you're swapping the Ascendancy as well. Now let's look at the Sceptre itself, and here it is. Your initial goal in the Sceptre is to get at least 140 plus spirit, together with any purity skill. So if you're on a budget, you can get a Sceptre with just 2 rune sockets, which is pretty cheap at the moment, and you can just buy it for approximately like 1 divine. I'm going to add a trade link to the guide as well, so make sure that you're checking it. So right here it is. And you can also get mana regeneration or additional stat for your Sceptre. If you have more budget, I would recommend to aim for 3 socket Sceptre. So in the Sceptre, we are going to use Primate Idols. By themselves are pretty useless. Allies in your presence deal 30% increased damage, but you're not considered your ally, so you can completely ignore it. We're using it only for Bonded Modifier, because for Bonded Modifier, every rune is going to give us 40% increased damage while shapeshifted. So 3 of them are going to give us 120% increased damage while shapeshifting, which is absolutely amazing, just by itself. But there's another cool thing, so even if you have a double socket one, don't worry about it, it's still going to provide you a lot of bonuses. So the biggest upside for us is using the aura. So Purity of Ice, Purity of Lightning or Purity of Fire is going to give you 40% resistance accordingly, so it's fire, ice or lightning. And the biggest upside here, that you can add persistent buffs to that aura, and they're not going to eat your spirit. So all those buffs that I have in my Purity of Fire are currently free. So we can use something absolutely crazy, like Herbalism, for example, to get more life recovery from Flask, Clarity 2 for higher mana regeneration, Cannibalism to recover the life when we are killing enemies, and Vitality, which is going to give us pretty nice 2% of life regeneration per second. And you will need 140 spirit to make sure you're still using both Herald of Ice and Charge Regulation, because those are main auras at the moment. Another important part is how you're going to lock your scepter to the second weapon set. So you're doing it similar like you're locking your talisman. You will need to hover over that thing and just right-click it to lock your scepter, so you'll have scepter and the talisman in both weapon sets. And right now, let's talk about next improvement, which is Herald of Ice change. So instead of Herald of Ash, we're going to use Herald of Ice, because we're currently using Lunar Assault with Baiter Vengeance to get the cold damage. Let me quickly explain that tech. So at the moment, you're just using Lunar Assault together with Baiter Vengeance, Freeze, Prolonged Duration and Rapid Attacks. That Lunar Assault is set to Weapon Set 2, which currently have additional duration bonuses. And when you're freezing an enemy with your Lunar Assault, you need to click it like once in 50 seconds to freeze any random enemy. You're going to receive 90% of damage or even higher based on your rage of additional cold. So since we have a lot of cold from Baiter Vengeance and Lunar Assault tech, don't forget to freeze with that. And you can check more info on the guide how to use it. We are going to use Herald of Ice. For Herald of Ice, we are going to run Magnified Area, Armor Demolisher, Armor Explosion, Armor Break and Heft. So all of that together is going to make our Herald of Ice to have pretty decent physical damage. And when Herald of Ice is going to blow up enemies, it's going to Armor Explode them. So Armor Explosions give us supported skill trigger an explosion when they fully break enemy armor. So that combination together should work pretty great, and it should improve our clear and improve Herald of Ice damage. If you don't have a last socket, just drop Heft and you will be absolutely fine. We currently don't have a single gem and Charge Regulation, so that's a base. And for Walking Calamity, at the moment I'm using Walking Calamity itself with Elemental Armament, Prolonged Duration, Elemental Focus, Concentrated, and the last gem is Soft Fire. I believe that Soft Fire is working pretty good for Walking Calamity, and it's not too expensive at the moment to get. So if you don't have the last support, getting Soft Fire could be pretty nice. It's changing damage, as you can see, it's jumping pretty nice. So if you have a budget, just use Soft Fire. If you don't, just use Execute instead. For the Ferocious Roar, at the moment I'm not really using Ferocious Roar that often. I still have it in the build just in case, to maybe use on bosses, but it's not too important to use it at the moment. So Shockwave Totems are still pretty great tool to practically use against bosses most of the time. So before I'm fighting the boss, I'm just putting double totems here and reusing the Rampage. Here I'm using Overabundance, Urgent Totems, Rapid Attacks, Urax Smelting and Armor Break. So totems are here to practically break armor at the boss and improve your damage significantly. For the Rampage, at the moment I'm running Momentum, Efficiency, Burgeon, Aftershocks and Stomping Ground. No much changes there because all of those gems are providing a pretty good bonuses. For the Furious Slam, I'm currently still having like Fist of War, Heft, Aftershock, Close Combat and Heavy Swing. I'm barely using Furious Slam at the moment since Rampage can do the job just fine, so use Furious Slam only if you're out of Rampage and you don't want to recast in the big pile of monsters. Lunar Assault, I already commented, is just Baiter, Freeze, Prolonged and Rapid Attacks. Don't forget that your Lunar Assault and your Walking Calamity should be set to the second weapon set. More explanation about that in the guide too. So for Purity of Fire, we're just using those supports, and for Maul, I'm running Rapid Attacks, Rage, Heft, Cold Attunement and Life Leech. So now let's talk about the gear and what is the priority for gear. First off, I have a very good video about how to craft all of my items. I'm going to leave it in the pinned comment and in the description, so check it out if you want to craft stuff for free, especially the weapon. So except the spirit, which I already showcased, we're using Magi Talisman, and after we re-pick to Wisdom of the Magi from Turning of the Seasons, we will need to use different runes as well. So using Feral Rune of the Hunt to get +1 to all attack skills, and Venomous Rune of Agony to get additional damage as extra physical and as extra chaos, is going to be better than just using basic physical runes. So your weapon should look somehow like that. Perfectly, you will need to prioritize level 4 attack skills, damage as extra physical, onslaught and high physical damage by itself. Getting the maximum rage is always a bonus. For the helmet, I heavily recommend to get like double socket option, but if you don't have it, just use Tazamoto Soul Core of Ferocity. So if you have a second, you can get increased cost efficiency to spend less rage with your Rampage. For the boots, at the moment, Feral Rune of the Chase is mandatory. If you can get boots with 60% increased effect of socketed, it will be a little better, but I wouldn't focus on that too much. So just use Feral Rune for 5% movement speed and call it a day. For the gloves, you will need to get level of all melee skills, attack speed, some life, and perfectly some flat damage, so like physical and any kind of elemental is going to work just fine. For the amulet, we are still running Defiance of Destiny, which is absolutely amazing. However, here comes the first change. For the bosses, so when you're fighting pinnacles, I recommend to swap the amulet for something with plus level of all melee skills and additional stats, so it will literally mirror the Defiance of Destiny. In that case, you will be less tanky, but you will deal more damage. So if you feel like your damage on bosses is lacking, running amulet with +3 level of melee skills would be pretty good. I currently have only +2 because like I have enough damage, but +3 would be even better. So for the body armor, you will need to get % of armor applies to elemental, some resistances and life, which is pretty easy to get. And for the belt question, right here you can just run a basic belt with some strength, some maximum life and a little resistances. It could be a very cheap one, just make sure it has 3 charms. And another question is Headhunter. I believe if you have Headhunter and you have enough money to use it, I recommend you to use it because Headhunter at the moment is feeling absolutely amazing. But if you don't have enough currency to run a Headhunter, you're going to be absolutely fine, just run a normal belt. And for the rings, at the rings it's pretty important to get life, leech and mana leech. If you don't have a life leech, you're going to be fine, but mana leech is absolutely mandatory, so make sure you have mana leech every time when you're running the ring. On top of that, perfectly, you will need to get some rarity and you will need to get physical or lightning or any kind of element of flat damage. If you will not have life, it's absolutely alright. So places to get the rarity is mostly rings and boots and helmets in case you want 100% rarity in the build. I'm still using From Nothing Diamond to jump to Blood Magic. I believe it's absolutely worth it because it's saving so many points. For the Amulet Anointment, I'm still using Bestial Rage just because it's giving a pretty decent amount of additional damage, additional physical damage, and I believe it's worth it. So at the top of it, there's also a few jewel changes that I wanted to showcase. First off, I'm currently using green jewels with movement speed, attack speed, and attack damage. I also got a pretty nice jewel for myself, which is Heart of the Well. On Heart of the Well, I have movement speed, extra fire, and extra cold. So for unique jewels, I'm going to add search links to the guide, so make sure to check it. But priority stats for Heart of the Well is just extra damage first, and movement speed and crit is not really needed. And the last unique jewel that I'm currently running is Against the Darkness. It gave me 3 chaos resistance for every small passive, and 4 extra fire as big ones. So here I'm getting all additional small chaos resistances, and I'm also getting damage as extra fire. At the moment, I believe that such Against the Darkness could be a little too expensive, so if you don't have the currency, feel free to just drop damage as extra to cap your chaos. Now, let's talk a little about survivability and item priority. So first off, your amount of armor should be approximately about 20 to 21,000 with the current setup. It will be enough most of the time. and applied to Elemental, it should be 30 plus, so you will survive good. On top of that, Defiance of Destiny is going to help you a lot with survivability. So Defiance of Destiny is your first big priority. The rest of the gear could be crafted, and you can check a video how to do that I already mentioned. And your big priority after Defiance of Destiny is practically going for a Headhunter if you have enough currency. So Headhunter is a second in that priority. And the last, you need to finish the jewels and get the rest of the items up. However, the build is perfectly playable just with Defiance of Destiny, and you will even feel tanky. Talking about the rest of the tree, it's also pretty mandatory to make sure that you have Blade Catcher to protect yourself against critical hits. And you also have a second weapon set as it's showcased in the guide and in my previous video. So weapon set for the duration, second here, here and here. And we're taking red points for damage here and here mostly. So at the moment that setup is pretty refined. I will probably work on a few changes later on, so check out the guide. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you will have unbearably good time. ronarray out.